They're about to abandon a $30 billion airport. Just walk away and leave it behind. But here's the part that'll blow your mind. This isn't some failed project or financial disaster. This is the world's busiest international airport. Over 90 million passengers, operating perfectly, making billions. And they have no choice but to shut it down. Why? Because of one fatal mistake they made decades ago that's now coming back to haunt them. What happens next is absolutely insane. A $35 billion bet on something that already failed once before. And if this goes wrong, an entire country goes down with it. In November 2023, something remarkable happened in the world of commercial aviation. Emirates and FlyDubai, two airlines that share the same home base in Dubai, announced what would become one of the largest aircraft orders ever recorded. The numbers were staggering. Emirates alone committed to purchasing more than 200 Boeing 777X aircraft, a next-generation wide-body jet that promises to be one of the most efficient long-haul planes ever built. But that was just the beginning. When you add in the orders for Airbus A350s and Boeing 787 Dreamliners from both carriers, the total comes to over 800 new aircraft scheduled for delivery over the coming years. To put that in perspective, we're talking about enough planes to start several major airlines from scratch. These aren't small regional jets either. Every single one of these aircraft is designed for long-haul international flights, the kind that can carry hundreds of passengers across continents and oceans. This is the sort of investment that signals serious ambition. Dubai clearly has plans to dominate global aviation for decades to come. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. There's a fundamental problem with this expansion plan, and it's not about money or demand or competition. The problem is much simpler and far more difficult to solve. Dubai International Airport, the main hub for both Emirates and FlyDubai, simply cannot accommodate this growth. It's already operating at maximum capacity, and there's virtually no way to expand it further. For anyone who has flown through Dubai International, this might come as a surprise. The airport is enormous, modern, and seems to handle massive crowds with relative efficiency. Walk through its terminals and you'll see gate after gate filled with aircraft from every corner of the world. During peak hours, the place is a carefully choreographed dance of arrivals and departures, with planes taking off or landing every couple of minutes. It's an impressive operation, but it's also an operation that has reached its absolute limit. The issues facing Dubai International are numerous and interconnected. First, there's the matter of gates. The airport has already used every available space for aircraft parking. There are no more gates to add without building entirely new terminals. And as we'll see, that's not really an option. Then there are the runways. Dubai International operates with just 2 parallel runways, and while they're used efficiently, you can only squeeze so many flights through them in a day. Aviation authorities have strict rules about how close together aircraft can land and take off for safety reasons. You can't simply speed things up beyond a certain point, but the most fundamental constraint is physical space. Dubai International Airport covers roughly 2,900 hectares. That might sound large, but compare it to other major international hubs and the limitation becomes clear. Denver International Airport in the United States, for example, spans about 13,000 hectares. Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson, the world's busiest airport by total passenger numbers, has significantly more room to work with. Size matters in aviation infrastructure because airports need space not just for runways and terminals, but for taxiways, maintenance facilities, fuel storage, cargo operations, and all the other supporting systems that keep planes flying. What makes Dubai International's situation particularly challenging is what surrounds it. Over the past few decades, as the airport grew into a global hub, the city of Dubai grew right along with it. In fact, the city grew around it. To the north of the airport lies the Deira district, one of Dubai's oldest and most densely populated neighborhoods. To the south and east, there are residential areas, commercial developments, hotels, and business districts. The airport is now completely landlocked, hemmed in on all sides by billions of dollars worth of urban infrastructure. This creates an impossible situation. You cannot simply bulldoze existing neighborhoods to add a third runway. You cannot demolish functioning commercial districts to build a 4th terminal. The engineering solutions that work at other airports where there's empty land available for expansion simply don't apply here. Dubai International has become a victim of its own success, trapped by the very city it helped create. For years, Dubai Airports, the organization that operates the facility, managed this limitation through a clever strategy. If you can't land more planes, you land bigger planes. Emirates became the world's largest operator of the Airbus A380, the double-decker giant that can carry over 500 passengers in a typical configuration. The logic was straightforward. Each aircraft gets one landing slot and one takeoff slot. By using the largest possible aircraft, you maximize the number of passengers you can move through those limited slots. This strategy worked brilliantly for more than a decade. Dubai International became famous for its rows of A380 chairs parked at gates, a sight that became synonymous with the airport's identity. But the aviation industry is always changing, and the ground is shifting beneath this model. Airbus stopped producing the A380 in 2021. The aircraft, while impressive, proved to be too large and inflexible for most airlines. The future of long-haul aviation is moving towards smaller, more efficient twin-engine wide-body aircraft like the Boeing 777X, the Airbus A350, and the Boeing 787. These planes are still large by any measure, but they carry fewer passengers than an A380. This shift creates a mathematical problem for Dubai. FlyDubai operates a substantial fleet of Boeing 737s, single-aisle jets used for regional and medium-haul routes. These aircraft take up a runway slot just like an A380, but they carry perhaps a third of the passengers. As FlyDubai continues to expand and integrate its operations more closely with Emirates, the pressure on those two runways intensifies. More flights with smaller aircraft means more takeoffs and landings to move the same number of people. Industry analysts and consultants have run the numbers, and their conclusions are sobering. Even with perfect efficiency, even if every possible optimization is implemented, Dubai International has an absolute ceiling of around 115 to 120 million passengers per year. The airport is already handling over 90 million passengers annually. At current growth rates, that ceiling will be reached within just a few years, and Dubai's aviation ambitions go far beyond 120 million passengers. The government has set a target of handling 250 million passengers by 2050, a figure that reflects the city's determination to remain the world's primary connecting point between East and West. This is where a project from the past suddenly becomes relevant again. About 30 kilometers south of Dubai International, sitting in the desert, there's another airport. It's called Al Maktoum International, though many people know it by its airport code DWC. This facility was supposed to be the solution to Dubai's capacity constraints, but for more than a decade it became something else entirely. It became one of aviation's most expensive and most visible failures. The story of Al Maktoum International goes back nearly 20 years. The original vision was breathtaking in its ambition. This would be the world's largest airport, a facility capable of handling 160 million passengers and 12 million tons of cargo annually. It would have 5 runways, massive terminals, and enough space to grow for generations. Construction began with great fanfare. The cargo facilities opened in 2010, and passenger operations started in 2013. Everything seemed to be progressing according to plan. Then reality intervened. The 2008 global financial crisis hit Dubai particularly hard. The city had been growing at an extraordinary pace, fueled by debt and ambitious development projects. When credit markets froze, many of these projects ground to a halt. Al Maktoum International didn't stop completely, but the grand vision was scaled back dramatically. Construction slowed. The urgency disappeared. For over a decade, the airport existed in a strange limbo, a facility that was open but barely used. Throughout the 2000s and 10s, Al Maktoum handled mostly cargo flights, private jets, and occasional overflow traffic when runways at Dubai International needed maintenance. During the COVID pandemic, it became the world's most expensive aircraft parking lot, with planes from various airlines stored on its vast, empty taxiways. The dream of a new aviation mega-hub seemed dead, buried under the weight of overambition and bad timing. There was also a deeper strategic reason why Al Maktoum International languished in the desert for so long. Airlines, particularly hub carriers like Emirates, absolutely hate operating from split locations. The economics of running a major hub depend entirely on the ability to efficiently connect passengers between flights. When you operate from a single airport, this is relatively straightforward. A passenger arriving from London can walk through the terminal and catch their connecting flight to Singapore. Their luggage is transferred between aircraft using ground crews and vehicles that move between gates. The whole system works because everything is concentrated in one place. Split that operation across two airports 30 kilometers apart, and the entire model falls apart. You need duplicate sets of ground equipment at both locations. You need separate maintenance facilities, separate catering operations, separate crew bases. Your staff have to travel between airports, which wastes time and money. Most critically, connecting passengers either have to be bussed between airports, which adds hours to their journey and creates a terrible travel experience, or you have to restrict which routes operate from which airport, which defeats the purpose of having a connecting hub in the first place. There are examples around the world of cities with multiple major airports, and they illustrate this problem clearly. London has Heathrow and Gatwick, Paris has Charles de Gaulle and Orly, New York has JFK, Newark and LaGuardia. But notice that in each of these cases, different airlines have chosen different airports as their primary base. British Airways concentrates its operations at Heathrow, not across multiple London airports. Air France built its hub at Charles de Gaulle, not split between Paris airports. The model only works when each airport serves as a hub for different carriers. For Emirates, the idea of splitting operations between Dubai International and Al Maktoum was essentially unthinkable. The airline had spent decades building one of the world's most efficient connection machines at Dubai International. Passengers could arrive from dozens of different origins and connect to dozens of different destinations, all within a few hours. The ground operations were refined to an art form. Moving half of this operation to another airport would have destroyed the efficiency that made the whole thing profitable. So for 10 years, Dubai kept finding ways to postpone the decision. Dubai International underwent continuous improvements and optimization. Terminal 3, which opened in 2008 and serves as Emirates' primary hub, was repeatedly upgraded and expanded within its existing footprint. The airport invested in better baggage handling systems, more efficient passenger processing, and improved ground operations. Every possible efficiency was extracted from the existing infrastructure. The plan seemed to be to just keep squeezing more capacity out of Dubai International for as long as physically possible. Then the world changed. The COVID pandemic shut down global aviation in 2020, and for a brief moment, it seemed like the capacity constraints might have solved themselves. Maybe demand would never return to previous levels. Maybe the era of rapid aviation growth is over. Those assumptions turned out to be completely wrong. When restrictions eased and people started flying again, they didn't just return to previous travel patterns, they exceeded them. The rebound in travel demand was faster and more intense than almost anyone in the industry predicted. By late 2022 and into 2023, airlines were struggling to keep up with bookings. Dubai International saw passenger numbers surge back toward pre-pandemic levels and then push beyond them. The brief respite provided by the pandemic only delayed the inevitable. The capacity crisis was back, and it was more urgent than ever. This coincided with another crucial development. Emirates and Boeing finally reached agreements on the 777X program. This aircraft had been in development for years, facing repeated delays and technical challenges. But by 2023, deliveries were expected to begin within a few years. FlyDubai was also expanding aggressively, adding new routes and increasing frequencies on existing ones. The order books were filling up with aircraft that had nowhere to land. In April 2024, the government of Dubai made the decision official. They announced approval for a massive investment of 128 billion dirhams, equivalent to approximately $35 billion to finally build out Al Maktoum International as originally envisioned. This wasn't a tentative commitment or a study. This was a full government backing for the largest airport construction project in the world. The announcement signaled a fundamental shift in thinking. For years, the hope had been that somehow Dubai International could continue serving as the primary hub, with Al Maktoum perhaps taking some overflow or serving as a base for cargo and budget carriers. That illusion was now gone. The numbers simply didn't work. If Dubai wanted to achieve its goal of handling 250 million passengers by 2050, if Emirates and FlyDubai wanted to operate their hundreds of new aircraft, there was only one possible solution. The entire operation had to move south to Al Maktoum. Understanding why this decision took so long requires looking at the actual constraints at Dubai International in detail. The airport occupies a rectangular plot of land measuring roughly 2,900 hectares. The two parallel runways run northeast to southwest, aligned with the prevailing winds in the region. Between them and around them are the taxiways that aircraft use to move between the runways and the gates. The three main terminals sit on the northern side of the airfield. This layout has been optimized over decades to move aircraft as efficiently as possible. But there are hard physical limits. The runways are separated by a specific distance to allow simultaneous operations while maintaining safety. You cannot simply add a third runway parallel to the existing two without massive separation from the current runways, which would require land that doesn't exist. An intersecting runway might be theoretically possible, but it would create enormous complications for air traffic control and would reduce overall capacity rather than increase it. The terminals face similar constraints. Terminal 3, the largest of the three, already stretches for well over a kilometre. It has two massive concourses extending from it, each lined with gates. There's simply no room to add another concourse without knocking down existing structures. Terminal 1 and Terminal 2, which handle other airlines and certain Emirates routes, are hemmed in by roads, parking facilities, and the metro station that serves the airport. The surrounding urban development makes everything worse. The Emirates Road, one of Dubai's major highways, runs along the eastern edge of the airport. The Dubai Metro's Red Line runs along the northern edge with a major station at Terminal 3. These pieces of infrastructure would cost billions to relocate, and moving them would disrupt the entire city. To the south, the Nad al-Sheba district has grown right up to the airport boundary. Residential towers, commercial buildings, and the famous Meydan racecourse are all within a few hundred meters of the runway threshold. This urban encroachment also creates noise restrictions that limit operations. Airports need to respect noise abatement procedures, particularly during night hours. When you have people living close to the airport, these restrictions become more stringent. Dubai International already faces complaints about aircraft noise from nearby residents. Increasing operations would only intensify this problem. Aviation consultants and planners have studied Dubai International exhaustively. They've looked at every possible optimization, every technology that might squeeze out more capacity. The consensus is clear. With perfect execution, with ideal weather, with the most efficient aircraft mix, the airport might be able to handle 115 to 120 million passengers per year. That's the absolute ceiling. Currently, the airport processes over 90 million passengers annually, at historical growth rates of around 5 to 7% per year. That ceiling would be reached sometime in the late 2020s or early 2030s. Once you hit that ceiling, growth stops completely. It's not a matter of slightly slower expansion or accepting some inefficiency. It means turning away business. Airlines would be unable to add new routes or increase frequencies on existing routes. Emirates would have to stop taking delivery of new aircraft or start retiring aircraft before the end of their useful life to keep the fleet size constant. For a city that has built its entire economic model around being a global aviation hub, this would be catastrophic. The realization finally sank in at the highest levels of Dubai's government. There was no clever engineering solution. There was no way to expand Dubai International within its current footprint. The only option was the one they'd been avoiding for a decade. They had to bite the bullet and move everything to Al Maktoum International. The $35 billion price tag was shocking, but the alternative was watching Dubai's aviation empire slowly strangle itself. The decision had been made. Now came the hard part: actually doing it. The scale of what's being built at Al Maktoum International is difficult to comprehend until you start comparing it to existing airports. This isn't simply an expansion or an upgrade of what's already there. This is the construction of what will become the largest airport facility on Earth, designed to handle a volume of passengers that currently seems almost theoretical. The centerpiece of the new master plan is the runway configuration. Al Maktoum International will have 5 parallel runways. To understand why this matters, you need to know a bit about how airports operate multiple runways. Most major airports have several runways, but they often cannot use all of them simultaneously for independent operations. The reason comes down to safety separation requirements. Air traffic controllers must maintain specific distances between aircraft, both in the air and on the ground. When runways are too close together, aircraft using one runway can interfere with operations on another. At Al Maktoum, the runways are being spaced specifically to allow true, simultaneous, independent operations. This means all 5 runways can handle arrivals and departures at the same time without one runway's operations affecting another. In practical terms, this multiplies capacity in a way that simply adding more runways at closer spacing would not. The airport will be able to process an enormous number of aircraft movements per hour, far exceeding what's possible at Dubai International. The terminal facilities are equally ambitious. The completed airport will have 400 aircraft gates. To put that number in context, consider that Hartsfield-Jackson in Atlanta, currently the world's busiest airport by total passenger numbers, has around 190 gates. London Heathrow, one of Europe's largest hubs, has about 120 gates. Al Maktoum will have more than double what Atlanta has. This isn't just about having more aircraft parked at gates either. Each gate requires supporting infrastructure. There need to be jet bridges or stairs for passengers to board. There need to be ground power units and air conditioning systems. For aircraft, there need to be fueling capabilities, baggage handling connections, and catering truck access. Every gate is a complex piece of infrastructure, and Al Maktoum will have 400 of them. The ultimate capacity target for the completed airport is 260 million passengers per year. That figure is so large it almost sounds made up. To understand what it means, consider that in 2023, the entire United States, with its dozens of major airports, handled approximately 950 million passengers. Al Maktoum International alone would handle more than a quarter of total US aviation traffic. It would be nearly 3 times the current volume at Dubai International. This is a number that positions Dubai not just as a major hub, but as the dominant force in global aviation for the foreseeable future. But building the infrastructure is only part of the challenge. The truly difficult part is moving an entire aviation ecosystem from one location to another, without destroying its efficiency in the process. This is genuinely unprecedented in commercial aviation history. Airlines have moved hubs before. Cities have opened new airports and closed old ones. But never has anyone attempted to relocate an operation of this size and complexity while maintaining continuous service. The transition is planned to take place over the next decade, with the first major phase targeted for completion in the early 2030s. The exact timeline remains somewhat fluid, as these massive construction projects inevitably face delays and adjustments. But the broad strokes of the strategy are becoming clear, and they reveal just how challenging this move will be. Emirates has made it clear that they will not split their operations between the 2 airports. This is the crucial decision that shapes everything else. The airline will continue operating entirely from Dubai International until Al Maktoum is ready to handle their complete hub operation. Only then will they make the switch. This means that when the day comes, Al Maktoum needs to be fully functional and capable of handling approximately 150 million passengers from day one. There's no gradual transition, no testing period with a partial operation. It has to work perfectly right from the start. Think about what needs to be in place for that to happen. The runways and terminals are obvious, but they're just the beginning. Emirates produces roughly 200,000 meals per day for its flights. That requires massive catering facilities with industrial kitchens, refrigeration systems, and logistics operations to get food from the kitchen to the aircraft. All of that infrastructure needs to be replicated at Al Maktoum before the switch happens. Then there are the maintenance facilities. Emirates operates a fleet that includes A380s, which are among the largest passenger aircraft ever built. Maintaining these aircraft requires specialized hangars that are tall enough and wide enough to accommodate them. The airline needs the ability to perform everything from routine checks to major overhaul work. Building hangars of this size is a massive construction project in itself, and they need to be fully equipped with tools, parts, and trained staff before Emirates can move its operations. The human element might be the most complicated factor of all. Dubai International currently employs tens of thousands of people. These include airline staff, airport authority employees, customs and immigration officers, security personnel, retail workers, restaurant staff, and countless others who keep the airport functioning 24 hours a day. Many of these people live in areas that are close to Dubai International. Moving the airport 30 kilometers south means either these workers need to relocate or they need to accept significantly longer commutes. The government is planning to build housing and supporting infrastructure around Al Maktoum, essentially creating a new urban district, but this takes time and coordination. One aspect that sets Al Maktoum apart from almost any other airport project is its integration with other transport modes. The airport is directly connected to Jebel Ali Port, one of the largest container ports in the world. This creates what planners call a sea-to-air cargo corridor. Goods arriving by ship can be transferred to aircraft with minimal handling, and vice versa. For high-value or time-sensitive cargo, this could make Dubai an even more attractive logistics hub than it already is. The economic model for Dubai has always been about more than just moving passengers. The city positions itself as a trading hub, a place where goods from Asia can be consolidated and redistributed to Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Air cargo is a crucial part of this model. The original Al Maktoum master plan included capacity for 12 million tons of cargo annually, which would make it the largest cargo airport in the world. That cargo operation is already partially built and functioning, handling flights from major cargo carriers. Expanding it further ties directly into Dubai's broader economic strategy. The government is also extending Dubai's metro system to reach Al Maktoum. The Red Line, which currently terminates at Jebel Ali, will be extended further south. New expressways are being built to provide direct road access. These aren't minor infrastructure projects. They represent billions of dollars in additional investment beyond the airport itself. But they're necessary if the airport is going to function properly. No airport of this size can rely solely on private vehicles and taxis for ground access. There needs to be efficient public transport connecting the airport to the rest of the city. All of this is happening against a backdrop of intensifying regional competition. For years, Dubai had the Gulf aviation market largely to itself. Qatar Airways operated a significant hub at Doha, but it was smaller in scale. Abu Dhabi had Etihad, but that airline struggled with its business model and pulled back from rapid expansion. Dubai was the clear leader. That's changing rapidly. Saudi Arabia has announced plans to launch a new national carrier called Riyadh Air. The Saudi government is investing heavily in tourism and business travel as part of its efforts to diversify the economy away from oil dependence. They're building King Salman International Airport in Riyadh with a target capacity of 120 million passengers by 2030. That's a direct challenge to Dubai's dominance. Qatar continues to invest in Hamad International Airport in Doha. That facility regularly wins awards for passenger experience and operational efficiency. Qatar Airways has used it to build a strong position in connecting passengers between Europe, Asia, and Africa. The airline is also expanding its fleet and adding routes. Abu Dhabi has opened a new terminal at Zayed International Airport, and Etihad is attempting a turnaround. The competition for passengers and airlines is heating up across the entire Gulf region. If Dubai stays at Dubai International and accepts the capacity constraints, it essentially surrenders market share to these competitors. Airlines looking to add flights to the region might choose Riyadh or Doha simply because they can get the landing slots they need. Passengers might select routings through these airports because the connections are more convenient. Over time, this could erode Dubai's position as the primary connecting point between East and West. Moving to Al Maktoum is therefore both a defensive and an offensive strategy. Defensively, it ensures that Dubai has the capacity to handle its existing traffic and maintain its current market position. The city cannot afford to turn away airlines or passengers because the airport is full. Offensively, it positions Dubai to capture future growth in global aviation. With 260 million passenger capacity, Al Maktoum would have room to grow for decades, potentially for the rest of the century. It sends a clear signal to Manastas, competitors, airlines and passengers that Dubai intends to remain the world's premier aviation crossroads. The transition from Dubai International to Al Maktoum International is no longer a question of if, but when and how. The current airport has reached its limits. The city that grew up around it has created barriers that no amount of engineering can overcome. The $35 billion investment in the new airport represents a bet on the future of global travel, a belief that people will continue to fly in increasing numbers and that they will continue to fly through Dubai. Given the alternatives, given the constraints, given the competition, it's not really a choice at all. It's the only path forward. The parking lot in the desert is about to become the busiest airport on Earth.